This is the first of 3 videos which outlines the format of each of the 3 A-level law exams that you'll be sitting at the end of your course. This video is looking at Exam 1. Exam 1 is on the nature of law and the English legal system. The exam is an hour and a half long and it is worth 25% of your overall A-level grade. 50 marks are available in total on Exam 1. 25 marks are available for Section A and 25 marks are available for Section B. The format of the questions on Section A and Section B are slightly different, so it's important that you remember the differences between the two. In Section A, you will be answering 2 short 5-mark questions which are testing you on your AO1, your knowledge of the law, and 1 15-mark scenario, which is testing you on Assessment Objective 2, i.e. your ability to apply the law to a scenario. The possible topics that could come up on Section A are Parliamentary Law Making, so that's all about how an Act of Parliament is made, EU law, Delegated Legislation, which are your 3 types of delegated legislation, Statutory interpretation, so that's all the rules on how judges interpret and apply Acts of Parliament, and Judicial Precedent, which is all about how judges follow a past case in a decision in front of them today. In Section B, you'll answer 1 10-mark question, which again is testing you on Assessment Objective 1, your knowledge of the legal rules and principles, and 1 15-mark question, which is testing you on Assessment Objective 3, which is your ability to analyse and evaluate the law in question. Topics that could come up here on this section are civil courts and ADR, criminal process. Now this is a very large topic that includes bail, sentencing, etc. Legal personnel, again another fairly large topic where you're looking at barristers, solicitors, the judiciary and also lay persons, and access to justice and funding. So this document gives you some examples of the sorts of questions you can expect on Section A and the sorts of questions you can expect on Section B. So I'm just going to have a look at those with you. So if we start with Section A, the first possible topic that could come up is Parliamentary Law Making. And there's a list here of the different types of 5-mark question that you could be asked on Parliamentary Law Making. Notice that 5-mark questions are explain type questions, and you should only spend approximately 10 minutes on each 5-mark question. Timing's really important on your exams. So here are just some examples of the possible things you could be asked. For instance, explain what is meant by parliamentary supremacy, explain what is meant by the rule of law, explain how an Act of Parliament is made. You could also get a scenario type question on the same topic, parliamentary law making, and these ones are advise type questions because you are applying the law to a given scenario. Students should spend approximately 25 minutes on a 15-mark scenario question. So if we have a look at one, this is a possible question that you could get. You've got a character here, Andy, who's becoming concerned about 0-hour contracts, and he wants to introduce a private members bill. And then you're being asked to advise Andy as to how this bill will work its way through Parliament. So you've got to still know the legal rules in how an Act of Parliament is made, but you need to make sure that you are advising the character on the particular steps. The next possible topic, still on Section A, is EU law making. And again, you can expect 5-mark questions on this topic and also a 15-mark scenario-based question. So typical examples here on EU, explain the role of the European Parliament, explain the role of the European Court of Justice. For a scenario type question, again, you would expect a character. Here we've got Alberto. So you're being asked to advise Alberto what steps can be taken under EU law to bring an action against the UK. So you would read this fictitious little scenario here and have a look at how he can challenge this EU law that he's not happy about. So you would need to apply your knowledge of directives and other EU laws applicability here. Next possible topic on section A is delegated legislation. And again, your typical 5-mark explain type question might be something like explain how Parliament controls delegated legislation, explain the different types of delegated legislation that exist. Once again, you've then got your advise scenario type question, where here your job is to advise Sarah on the ways that she can challenge delegated legislation. So you would have a look at her situation, think about the parliamentary controls that are on delegated legislation. You'd also have to advise Sarah on how she could challenge it in the courts. So how could she use judicial review in that particular case? Another topic still on section A, statutory interpretation. Your 5-mark example questions here. I should point out, of course, there are many questions they could ask you here. These are just to give you a flavour really of what you could be asked. So you might get asked to explain one of the rules of language, such as expressio unis est exclusio ulterius, or you might be asked about the golden rule, etc. Again, you've got your 15-mark scenario advise type question. And here you've got a fake act of Parliament there, and your job is to advise Karen as to whether an offence has been committed in what she's done here, according to that act. So what you would have to do there is think about, would she be guilty using the literal rule? Would she be guilty using the golden rule? Would she be guilty using the mischief rule? Would she be guilty using the purposive approach? You might also mention any intrinsic or extrinsic aids that the judge might use to help him make a decision, any rules of language that might be relevant here. There are some other examples here as well. Next topic on section A is judicial precedent. So again, your 5-mark questions, you could get something like explain the advantages of judicial precedent, or explain what distinguishing means, for instance. Again, your 15-mark scenario question, you're being asked to advise a character. Here you're advising Lord Arrington on how we can decide whether his trust will be charitable. So basically you have to look at this situation and apply your knowledge of binding precedent. So would the courts here be bound by the case in question? And you would be advising the character there. Right, we're coming on to section B now. I should really have written that at the top of this document. Let me add it in here quickly. So this is section B. We'll make that nice and large as well, I think. There we go. So section B now, remember you've got different style of question on section B. You're going to have a 10-marker followed by a 15-marker on a variety of different possible topics. So civil courts is the first topic that could come up here. So a typical 10-marker might be to explain the role of tribunals. You would need to spend 20 minutes on a 10-mark question. And then your part B 15-mark question, you're going to spend longer on. You would spend 25 minutes here. Analyse and evaluate the different methods of ADR for that one. So So for these analyse and evaluate, you're not just saying what the law is, you are evaluating whether it's good or bad. And that's why you're getting AO3 marks there. So another topic that could come up on section B, criminal process. So your 10 markers here that you'd be spending 20 minutes on. So for instance, explain how jurors qualify and are selected. And your part B 15 marker that you're spending 25 minutes on. Analyse and evaluate the advantages and disadvantages of bail, for instance. Legal personnel, another topic on section B. 10 mark question. Typical one might be explain the role and training of solicitors, or explain the education, work and training of solicitors. Your part B on that question might be to analyse and evaluate how the legal profession are regulated, or to evaluate the social diversity of the bar and its significance. And your last topic here on section B is on access to justice and funding. So your 10 mark question might be to explain the sources of funding available, or explain conditional fee agreements, whereas your part B, your analyse and evaluate, might be to analyse and evaluate the need to reform legal aid, or to analyse and evaluate how methods of funding affect access to justice in civil cases, for instance. So that's the format of the whole exam then. So just to recap for you then, in this exam, you're answering section A and section B. You will answer 2 5 markers, 1 15 mark scenario on section A. And on section B, you will answer 1 10 mark question and 1 15 mark question. And that is 25% of your overall qualification. Please watch the other video clips on exams 2 and exam 3.